Borough Groeso, good morning and welcome. Thank you, Paul, for that introduction and handover. Can I just say it's great to see so many delegates. I think we've got around about 100 today, and also the quality of the speakers that we have. I'm sure you're going to have a really enjoyable and productive day with us. I also wanted to touch just a little on the title of today's conference. It feels to me like it's a really pertinent and timely time to be thinking about coaching the new normal, present and post-pandemic challenges. I wanted to just touch in my opening address to say a few words relating to the current position we're in, and also some of my experiences that just give me some thoughts and some thinking that I wanted to share with you about the role coaching can play. Paul's obviously left me with a bit of a challenge to see how many quality quotes I can get in during my 15 minutes. So I'll try hard, but mine might have a few more musical and sporting references given my cultural and sporting background. It is a really critical time, isn't it? In terms of the pandemic and the challenges that we faced over the last 18 months, if we try and think our journey through and moving on from the pandemic, we would hope that we get to an endemic where the situation's relatively stable and can be dealt with in relation to vaccination next spring and summer. And we still have this period to get through over the next 6 months where we're dealing with an emergency and recovering from that situation. And I genuinely believe coaching has, from my own experiences leading an organisation and coaching myself, such a critical role in supporting individuals, those in our organisations, those in one public service, because we come together as a community, and in our society in Wales to reflect on the experiences that we've had so far, to think about what our experiences have been like during that pandemic so that we can help unite rather than be divided about our moving on and returning to some sort of normal or new normality. So one of my call to actions at the end of this opening address is, do use today to think about the role you can play, whether it's being coached, or having coaching conversations in your organisations or with your colleagues, so that we can move on and strengthen our resilience coming out of the pandemic. Stronger together, united we'll win. I'm going to start with a Manic Street Preachers quote, showing my music and cultural love, but also relate it then to being very lucky on Tuesday night to be at the Wales versus Belgium World Cup qualification match. And I apologise for using a football reference, but it just does seem timely after Tuesday evening. I think it's a good example of coaching for performance, that a Welsh team can hold the top-ranked team in the world and hold them in a united way with passion, energy and belief, and play as high a quality of game as the Belgian team. What's really obvious if you go and watch is the unity and bond between the coaches, the backroom staff, the players on the pitch, and the 33,000 spectators that were in the stand. Coaching in that instance for me has created a network, a movement that's showing the power of being stronger together. My own experiences of coaching, because coaching's been with me for much of my life from an early age, are extremely positive, and it's something I could not do without. Those early experiences, some of them not always good, come from my early experiences in sport. From playing sport to a reasonable level, from having some coaches who would tell you what to do and teach you, to others who would grow your own skills to be able to help coach yourself. I didn't realise Paul was going to use a similar quote from Sir John Whitmore in terms of coaching, because that was, I suppose, my first real introduction after having participated in coaching to then actually tutoring sports coaches. But one of the quotes for me that really stands out is coaching is not merely a technique to be wheeled out and rigidly applied in certain prescribed circumstances. It's a way of managing, it's a way of treating people, a way of thinking, and a way of being. And I think that's what I want to touch on in terms of thinking of the new normal coming out of the pandemic, that the power of coaching is huge in terms of being able to think and to be in terms of the way we are and the way that we support and influence people. My own journey then, after experiencing coaching through sport and tutoring sports coaches and coaching as a sports person, was to be lucky enough to receive some good coaching. It helped me in terms of my career development, both in terms of moving up from being a middle manager to a senior manager, but very much preparing myself for the challenge of chief executive interviews and the whole process that you go through with a range of people, whether it's counsellors, frontline staff, or senior managers and psychometric testing. So I would not be in the position that I am today without the support of that background, I think, in terms of helping me understand who I am and what I want to achieve and setting out my own personal story and narrative. I think, as R.S. Thomas would say, we reach the head through the heart. That ability in our conversations and our support to other people to work with both people's intellect, people's passions, and people's wanting to act to make a difference is so critical. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I've very much been involved in supporting middle managers and leaders to develop and provide coaching, particularly through our own professional society of local authority chief executives. And I know in that role as a coach, the enjoyment we get out of being able to enable others to develop and reach their full potential is so life-affirming and inspiring, probably more so actually than receiving that coaching and support. What I want to try and do is try and link the 3 things together that I've described. I guess my critical learning as a sports person was the ability to start coaching myself. Then early in my career, that receiving of coaching to help me develop. And then in the later stages of my career, not just sports coaching, but coaching others in terms of their own development. I think all 3 of these things are really critical in our own development. It creates a virtuous circle that if we're acting as a coach, if we're receiving coaching and we're coaching ourselves, then we're developing in a really rounded way. The way I wanted to relate it to the pandemic and the new normal is that it's very unusual to have an emergency where everybody's been affected. Normally, it would be a flood, or it would be a chemical emergency, or it might be a famine in terms of elsewhere in the world. And what often happens in those situations is that people who've not been affected by the situation come in and provide, whether it's counselling or coaching or other types of support. So there's a cohort of people that provide support that haven't been affected by the situation. We're in a unique situation in that we've all been affected. And I think, therefore, it's that importance of us receiving coaching, being able to self-coach ourselves and coach others, that's a really critical skill and tool to support society's recovery from the pandemic. I know in my own organisation, the big push for us at the moment in Wrexham is to enable people to reflect on their experiences over the last 18 months. Everybody's had a different experience. And actually, if we're not to be divided in terms of moving on as we reach endemic next year and feel some difficulties about the fact we've been through different situations to others, then we need to find a way of having conversations that reflect on the experience that we've had, that unite people back together, and that help lay a platform for the way we work and for the way we talk in the future. And from my perspective, that's where coaching plays such a critical role. And that's why I would encourage you after today to think about the role that you play in enabling those conversations with your coaching skills back with your colleagues, with your organisations, and in wider society. Enjoy the day. Look forward, like me, to the speakers that we've got. Do contribute, as Paul described, in lots of ways.